No one has been idealized as much as Musashi was in Japan, or has been in Japan. There are perhaps 100 movies, many novels. There are television programs about Musashi. And you try to think of a Western equivalent, and I just don't believe there is. Musashi is often called Musashi rather than Miyamoto Musashi because he was the only one. And he is so well known to the people of Japan as Musashi that if you say the name, nobody will make a mistake about who you're talking about. Musashi represents the quintessential ideal of the warrior. Ever since ancient times in China, going back to the time of Confucius, all the way through Chinese history and Japanese history as well, the ideal warrior was a man who had proficient use of his weapon on the one side, and on the other, he was very, very cultured. And Musashi fit this to a T. He was not only extraordinarily proficient with his sword or other instruments as well, but he was also a painter, he was a poet, he was a calligrapher, he was a metallurgist, and he was interested in such arts as the Noh drama and others. The ideal is one of the full person, more the full human being than just the full warrior. Everyone was expected to fulfill this ideal. There's a wonderful kanji, or Chinese character, in the Japanese lexicon. It's pronounced uruwashi, or hin. And it's made up of one side, the character for warrior, and on the other side of the character for culture. It means balanced. It means when content fits the outside and the outside fits the inside. If you have just knowledge of warfare and just the knowledge of your weapon, you're not going to be a full man, and you're going to fail in warfare as well. So in order to understand human beings, which is something that you have to understand in order to be proficient in warfare, you have to understand the full gamut of human culture, really. Musashi's lineage is a very short one. His father, Munisai, was also a teacher of swordsmanship, a teacher of a kind of a precursor of judo and various martial arts. You were born at that time, you were born into the samurai or the warrior class. So Musashi was already of the warrior class. Musashi left his father when he was very young, 8, 9 years old perhaps. And although he no doubt sat in his father's dojo and watched very, very intently as things were going on, he didn't take his father as a master. He wound up being tutored by an uncle who was a Buddhist priest in the Chinese classics and this sort of thing. But he was known as the leading demon general of all the children in the village, and he was always the one who instigated any problems one way or the other. You might make a modern comparison. He'd be the guy that would get all the kids to go toilet paper somebody's house. And so he was not really well liked in the village itself, other than among the children. In the Samurai 1 movie, Inagaki's first film on Musashi, you see that reflected by the entire village disliking him and his disliking the entire village. I didn't get the idea in my research that that was really the matter at all. He was a leader of the kids, and they often did pranks and this sort of thing. But in the movie, I think it kind of goes over the top a little bit in showing that all the villagers sort of disliked him and really wanted to get rid of him. Samurai 1 followed the Yoshikawa Eiji novel very, very well. And you have to remember that Yoshikawa was writing a serial novel. There were over 1,000 entries in this. It came out in the newspaper and kept people on their seats. And he was a great novelist, but he took a lot of, he took a lot of margin, I think, in depicting the people that were involved with Musashi. There was no Akemi. There was no Otsu. There was no Osugi. There was no Matahachi. Musashi would not have met Takuan at all until he was well into his 30s and possibly his 40s. Takuan did not live in his village. So Inagaki took a lot of liberty, poetic license, maybe you could say, in creating this film. And yet, I think he did quite well in treating the Takuan character. The scenes where Musashi was tied up in the tree for a couple of days, the scene where he was at the Ikeda castle, trapped in the very top of the castle, are both quite fiction. What they capture, I think, is the hardness or the seriousness of a man like Takuan. Takuan was a Zen priest who came from the western coast of Japan. He came from a family of sword polishers and sword appraisers, so he knew what he was talking about when it came to the sword. Zen Buddhist priests were not interested in being nice. They were not interested in being gentle. They were interested in drawing out the full human being of the person they were dealing with. This treatment of Takuan as being somewhat mean and hard is a tradition in Zen Buddhism. They are spoken of as having the kindness of an old grandmother, but this kindness of an old grandmother came out in very harsh forms that they felt would be appropriate and more often than not were. The first Inagaki film has Musashi leaving the Ikeda castle and going off to become a true shugyosha, a true traveling swordsman. But the fact of the matter is, of course, that he never was in the castle and he never was tied up in the tree by Takuan. He left when he was about 15. He walked up to the slope outside of town and walked into history. Most scholars will remark that while you wouldn't have called Miyamoto Musashi enlightened, he certainly did come to a very strong understanding of what Zen was all about in terms of never being caught by anything. This is something that is repeated in his book over and over, and in Takuan too, by the way, that the mind should never be caught. If you are caught thinking about the tip of your sword, your mind will be caught by the tip of the sword. If you are thinking about your opponent's eyes, your mind will be caught by the opponent's eyes. If you think of not being caught at all, your mind will be caught by the thought of being caught. So he felt that the mind had to be everywhere. And one of the reasons for this was that Musashi felt that you had to understand every technique that you used as something of your very own. You have to figure this as something you yourself have discovered. So many of the other swordsmen who established schools said that they had been given their ideas by gods or demons or certain dreams, or they were enlightened at a temple when they were doing meditation at a temple. Musashi wanted to get away from all that. He said, if this isn't yours, it's nobody's, and it won't work for you. So that is the basic tenet of Zen as well, that you cannot ride somebody else's horse. It has to be your own.